Happiness is something every human being wants, yet most people search for it in the wrong places. From a very young age, we are quietly trained to believe that someone else will complete us, that one person will understand us fully, support us endlessly, and make us happy forever. So we grow up carrying this invisible expectation inside our hearts. And when people don't behave the way we imagined, when they disappoint us, leave us, change, or fail to meet our expectations, our happiness collapses. We feel empty, hurt, and lost. Slowly, without realizing it, we give the remote control of our happiness to other people. And the day they change the channel, our peace disappears. True happiness begins the day you realize that people are companions on your journey, not the source of your joy. This realization is not cold or selfish. It is deeply liberating. It frees you from emotional slavery and teaches you how to stand strong on your own feet. Being happy without depending on people does not mean you stop loving, trusting, or caring. It simply means you stop expecting others to carry the responsibility of your inner state. There is a simple story of a man who went to a saint and said, "I am unhappy because people don't treat me well. They don't respect me, they don't appreciate me." The saint smiled and handed him a mirror. He said, "Look into this mirror every morning and ask yourself one question. Did I respect myself today?" The man was confused. The saint continued, "When your happiness depends on others, you become their prisoner. When it depends on you, you become free." Most of our sadness comes from expectations. We expect people to behave in a certain way. We expect them to understand us without explanation. We expect loyalty, gratitude, and consistency. But the truth is, everyone is fighting their own battles. Everyone is limited by their own mindset, wounds, fears, and upbringing. When we expect perfection from imperfect humans, disappointment is guaranteed. A wise farmer once planted a mango tree and watered it every day. After many years, the tree grew strong and healthy, but it didn't give fruit immediately. The farmer didn't curse the tree. He didn't stop watering it. He understood the process. But when it comes to people, we forget this wisdom. We want instant understanding, instant loyalty, instant happiness. And when it doesn't come, we feel hurt. Happiness grows slowly when it is rooted inside, not borrowed from outside. One of the most powerful steps toward independent happiness is learning to enjoy your own company. Many people fear being alone, not because loneliness is painful, but because silence forces them to face themselves. They are uncomfortable with their own thoughts, so they surround themselves with people, noise, and distractions. But when you learn to sit with yourself, to understand your thoughts without judgment, something beautiful happens. You become your own safe place. There was a woman who always felt lonely unless she was with someone. One day, due to circumstances, she had to spend a few months living alone. At first, she cried every night. Slowly, she began reading, walking, journaling, and reflecting. One evening, she realized something surprising. She was laughing alone at her own thoughts. For the first time, she felt complete. Later, when people returned to her life, she didn't cling to them. She enjoyed them. That is the difference between need and choice. When your happiness depends on people, you become emotionally reactive. A small comment ruins your day. A delayed reply creates anxiety. Someone's mood decides your mood. This is exhausting. Happiness without dependency teaches emotional maturity. It teaches you to respond instead of react, to pause instead of panic, to understand that not everything is personal. A calm mind understands this simple truth. People behave based on their capacity, not your worth. When someone ignores you, it doesn't always mean you are unimportant. When someone criticizes you, it doesn't always mean you are wrong. When someone leaves, it doesn't mean you are unlovable. Sometimes, it simply means they were not meant to walk with you any further. Another story speaks of two friends walking through a forest. One was constantly complaining about the heat, the insects, the long road. The other walked silently, observing the trees and the sky. When asked why he wasn't complaining, he said, "I came to walk, not to suffer." Happiness is often a choice of focus. When you depend on people, your focus stays outside. When you depend on yourself, our focus turns inward. Gratitude is a powerful tool to build independent happiness. When you are grateful, you stop searching for what is missing and start appreciating what is present. Gratitude trains the mind to find abundance even in simplicity. You don't need someone to validate your worth when you are thankful for your own journey. There is also strength in acceptance. Acceptance does not mean approval, it means understanding reality as it is. People will disappoint you. Relationships will change. Some bonds will break. When you accept this truth, you stop fighting life. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what can this teach me? A bird sits on a branch not because it trusts the branch, but because it trusts its wings. Similarly, happiness does not come from trusting people blindly, it comes from trusting your ability to handle life. When you trust your inner strength, you are no longer afraid of loss. Self-respect plays a major role in happiness. When you respect yourself, you don't tolerate disrespect. You don't beg for attention. You don't chase people who don't choose you. This self-respect creates inner peace. And inner peace is the highest form of happiness. One man once said, I stopped being unhappy the day I stopped asking people to be what they are not. This simple sentence carries deep wisdom. Expecting kindness from a cruel person is like expecting shade from fire. When you understand people as they are, not as you wish them to be, you protect your heart. Being happy without depending on people also means building a meaningful life. A life filled with purpose, discipline, and growth. When your days have direction, you don't cling to people for fulfillment. Your work, your values, and your progress give you satisfaction. Silence is another teacher. In silence, you discover that peace does not come from conversation, but from clarity. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you save energy. When you stop seeking approval, you gain confidence. Spiritual understanding also helps. Knowing that life has a higher order, that not everything is in your control, brings relief. You stop blaming people for your pain and start seeing experiences as lessons. Faith makes the heart lighter. In the end, happiness without dependency is not about isolation. It is about balance. You love deeply, but you don't lose yourself. You care genuinely, but you don't beg. You enjoy company, but you don't fear solitude. And one quiet day, you will realize something profound. People may come and go. Situations may change, but your inner peace remains. You smile more easily. You sleep more peacefully. You feel lighter. That is true happiness. Not borrowed, not dependent, but rooted deeply within you. And as this inner happiness deepens, you begin to experience life differently. Situations that once shook you now feel lighter. Words that once hurt you now pass through without leaving scars. This is not because people have changed, but because why? Who have? Your center of gravity has shifted inward. When you stop depending on people for happiness, you stop demanding perfection from them. You allow them to be human. You allow yourself to be human too. This creates compassion instead of resentment, understanding instead of anger, peace instead of constant emotional storms. There is a beautiful story of a traveler who carried a heavy bag wherever he went. One day, exhausted, he sat down and opened it. He realized the bag was filled with stones he had collected from every painful experience, every insult, every disappointment. Slowly, he began removing them one by one. With each stone removed, he felt lighter. Many of us carry emotional stones given to us by people. Happiness begins when you decide not to carry what was never meant to be yours. You also learn the art of detachment. Detachment does not mean lack of love, it means freedom from control. You care without clinging. You give without expecting. You stay without fear. And if someone leaves, you don't collapse because your foundation was never built on them. When your happiness depends on people, you constantly adjust yourself to be liked. You suppress your truth to maintain peace. You tolerate disrespect to avoid loneliness. But independent happiness gives you courage. The courage to say no. The courage to walk away. The courage to choose yourself without guilt. There was a young man who always agreed with everyone, fearing rejection. Inside he felt empty. Wonder why he decided to live honestly. Some people left, some criticized him. But something unexpected happened. He felt peaceful for the first time. The cost of authenticity is loneliness sometimes, but the reward is self-respect. And self-respect brings a deep, stable happiness. You also begin to understand that moods are temporary, but mindset is powerful. You won't feel happy every moment, and that's okay. Happiness is not a permanent smile, it is a stable inner state. Sadness may visit, but it doesn't move in permanently. When people disappoint you, instead of asking, why did they do this to me, you ask, what is life teaching me through this? This shift turns pain into wisdom. Every disappointment becomes a lesson, not a wound. You also stop comparing your life with others. Comparison steals joy. When happiness depends on people, comparison becomes constant. But when happiness comes from within, you walk your own path peacefully. A river does not stop flowing because someone throws stones at it. It flows around them. Be like that river. Let experiences pass without blocking your flow. As you grow emotionally independent, your relationships actually improve. Because now you don't need people. You choose them. Choice creates healthier bonds than need ever could. Love becomes lighter, freer, and more joyful. You laugh more genuinely. You listen more deeply. You love without fear of loss. Because even if everything changes, you know you will still be okay. And one day, sitting quiet, you will realize something remarkable. The happiness you were searching for in people was always waiting inside you. Patient, silent, strong. That is when you truly become free. Not because you stopped loving people, but because you finally learned how to love yourself. And with that freedom comes a gentle wisdom. You no longer rush to fill emotional gaps. You no longer panic when messages are unanswered or plans are cancelled. You understand that your worth is not measured by attention, replies, or validation. You stop counting how much others give and start noticing how much peace you carry. When happiness is no longer dependent on people, your mornings feel different. You wake up with less resistance. Your evenings feel calmer because your mind is not replaying conversations, arguments, or expectations. Sleep becomes deeper because your heart is lighter. You begin to understand that people enter your life for different seasons. Some come to teach you, some come to support you, some come to challenge you, and some come only to show you what you should never tolerate again. When you stop depending on people for happiness, you stop forcing them to stay beyond their season. There is a story of a gardener who loved every flower in his garden. Some bloomed in spring, some in summer, some only once. He never cried when a flower completed its cycle. He simply thanked it and prepared the soil again. Relationships are like that. When you understand this, you stop mourning endings as failures. You see them as completion. You also stop explaining yourself to everyone. You realize that not everyone will understand your journey, and that is perfectly fine. Peace does not require permission. Happiness does not need approval. Slowly, you become more present. When you eat, you taste. When you walk, you feel the ground. When you breathe, you notice life moving through you. Presence is a quiet source of happiness that does not depend on anyone else. You also learn to forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness releases you from carrying the past into the present. It frees mental space, and a free mind is a happy mind. There was an elderly woman once asked the secret of her calm smile. She said, I stopped asking life to be easy. I started asking myself to be strong. Strength does not mean emotional hardness, it means emotional stability. As your happiness becomes rooted within, you attract different kinds of people. Calmer people, healthier people, people who don't drain you. Because energy recognizes energy. You also stop overgiving. You give from fullness, not emptiness. You help without losing yourself. You love without self-abandonment. This balance protects your joy. And then comes a beautiful realization. Happiness is not something you chase. It is something you allow. When you stop blocking it with expectations, fears, and dependencies, it naturally flows. You learn to smile without reason, to be content without achievement, to rest without guilt, to exist without apology. Life still has problems. People still disappoint. Plans still fail. But you no longer fall apart. You bend, you breathe, you move forward. Because now your happiness is no longer fragile. It does not sit in someone else's hands. It lives quietly, steadily inside you. And that is the kind of happiness no one can take away. And once this understanding settles in your heart, you begin to live with a certain grace. A grace that does not come from having everything, but from needing very little. You stop chasing people to fill emotional gaps because you have learned how to sit with your own emotions without running away from them. You start seeing happiness not as excitement, but as steadiness. Not as constant laughter, but as calm acceptance. You realize that a peaceful mind is far more valuable than a busy social life. And this realization changes your priorities. Earlier, you may have felt anxious when people distance themselves. Now, you bless them silently and continue walking, not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself, not to suffer unnecessarily. There is a story of a monk who was once insulted publicly. He smiled and walked away. Someone asked him later, "Why didn't you respond?" The monk replied, "If someone brings you a gift and you don't accept it, who does it belong to?" Many insults, disappointments, and emotional wounds are like unaccepted gifts. When your happiness depends NDS on people, you accept everything they throw at you. When it doesn't, you choose what enters your inner world. You also stop measuring your value by how useful you are to others. You realize you are worthy even when you are resting, even when you are silent, even when you are not pleasing anyone. This is a powerful shift. It heals deep emotional exhaustion. As you become emotionally independent, your kindness becomes purer. Earlier, you may have been kind hoping for love, appreciation, or loyalty in return. Now, you are kind because it feels right. There is no hidden contract. And kindness without expectation is deeply fulfilling. You also learn to slow down. When happiness depends on people, life feels rushed. Reply quickly, show up constantly, stay available. But when happiness comes from within, you allow space. Space to think, space to breathe, space to grow. One day, you will notice that even when you are surrounded by people, you don't feel lost. And even when you are alone, you don't feel lonely. That balance is rare and it is beautiful. You begin to trust life more. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop clinging to specific people, roles, or identities. You understand that what is meant to stay